Okay, good. I'm
Hi,
not
everybody. Yeah, welcome, everybody, and thanks for being here with Diana and I. Almost can't. We did talk about canceling, but then I decided I thought it would be much better to come back because this is where is my happy place, and so that's why last night I showed up on the show with Sherry and Marina.
Yeah,
And
that was fun.
I didn't know they were doing that fundraiser. It kind of made me a little uncomfortable, but it was very
Did it?
nice of them to do that. Yeah, it was nice of them to do that. But anyway, Diana and I asked Diana to do one of the Ascended Masters. What was it, about 6 months ago, I think?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you decided you wanted to do Merlin, and then we sort of forgot about it, or I did, or I don't know. But anyway,
It
it's always
just
the right
kept
time.
getting, it
Push back.
kept going to the wayside. You said
Yeah,
you wanted to do it last, and I said, I'm in.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
the
Here
last
we are.
guy.
Well,
And how,
spirit knows when the right time is. So that's what
right?
happened. So here we
And
go.
leave
Yeah.
it to Merlin to tell us when.
How true is that? And he picked Samhain, which is
Yep.
looks like Samhain, everybody, but it's called
Yeah.
Samhain.
Right.
And yeah, so Merlin is making his appearance, and Diana has some stuff to tell us, some interesting things, and then I'll tell you about my experience with Merlin. And yeah,
All
so
right.
I'm going to open it up for you to school us, girlfriend.
Okay. So we have a historic Merlin, and then we also have a second historic Merlin. And if you really want to confuse the issues, you can find about 4 more historic Merlins.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear that they are all one and the same guy.
Probably just in
Right?
different iterations, right? Yep.
Not only that, but he had access to that miracle Buddhist put yourself in a state of suspended animation and meditation for
Yeah.
centuries. And he had access to that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
as did Yeshua, as did
Right.
Joseph of Arimathea,
They're
as
all
did,
tied in. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
well, and if you stop and think about it, Joseph of Arimathea is a tinsmith and merchant, and who better to go and know than Merlin?
Right.
Especially, which brings me to another state of philosophy about Saint Joseph. Was he really Joseph of Arimathea? And with the way the church has written him out of the picture totally and just
Mm-hmm.
called him a skilled craftsman, well, isn't navigating a boat a skill?
Well, yeah. I mean, well, look what they did. They did that with Mary. They said she was a virgin, and she just was that meant an unmarried woman. So yeah.
And
Yeah.
exactly. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what?
What?
Virgin births are not strange, as Christianity would like to have you believe,
Mm-hmm.
because the virgin birth happened on a regular basis. And our Merlin was born sometime between 432 and 447, something like that. But this is the book that gives you the best historic synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is a printed copy of a book that was published in 1812.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my Merlin. This book is right down to publishing the subscriber's name in the tiny little print that it was used in 1812.
Yeah. Now, when you said he was 480 or whatever you said, that when was that AD or BC?
Well, it's AD, but
Okay.
prior to
Okay.
that, he was known to have been born in the year of the world 4142.
Okay.
Something crazy
Well,
like that.
reincarnation, Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
But somewhere in there is when they started to score the years as BC and AD,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
So he was born in 432 which is my guess is he's probably born more around that time. The time frame is um, between 4,122 and 4,042 is when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
But then came the time shift, and
All right.
his being born in sometime between 425 and 450. Now, he was born during the reign of Vortigern. And what this book does is tell you the history of every single king of the continent, of Great Britain, Welsh, all of those kings, how they're tied together, how they are tied to the Holy Roman Empire and what the Roman Empire tried to do to them, and how many years of being under their rule until the rise of oh no, I just forgot who it was, but regardless, it's all in that book. And it's anybody who's a history buff would probably know which king was in charge. But Vortigern was given a part of England, and he was crowned in 448 AD.
Okay.
Now, he was given king of the Picts and Scots, and they didn't like that, so they attacked him, and he fled to Canterbury and entered the Saxons of Germany, and two guys by the name of Heist and Horace, they were brothers, and these fights and wars broke out with Vortigern and him. So Vortigern finally gets the crown and gets the land, and now he wants to build a castle. And every time he goes to lay the stones of the foundation for his castle, they sink.
Oh wow.
And he can't understand why, and he's not moving his plan. This is where he's putting his castle. But they would never, no matter what, every single time they would start the foundation, they would sink. So he brought all of the soothsayers, and he brought all of the architects, and tried to figure this out, and nobody could come up with what the hell was going on. So what they had said to him, one of them had said, the stones could never be laid together or placed to be built upon till they were cemented with the blood of a man-child who must be born of a woman, but had no man as his father. Hence the legend of an incubus for Merlin's father. Well, Vortigern liked that answer. So all the soothsayers and the architects left all overjoyed. Their reputation was saved. So what Vortigern did from there was he had heard of this magician. And so he gathered all of his servants, and he sent them on a mission to find this man who had a mother, but no father. And that led them to, how do you say that? Merlin. There, let me look at it this way.
Oh, Caradwin.
Yes, thank you. That's the one.
Sure.
And that's this is in this history book from 1812. As well as all of the kings prior to that. So it is also referred to as a city with gates. Anyway, the messenger from Vortigern saw these kids out playing, younger guys, having sporting events. And a young one came up to him to meet the stranger, and another one came with him, and he was named Merlin. So the servant heard Dinah call upon Merlin, and he said, oh, this is who I was looking for. And he heard this friend of his say, hey, Moonculp. Well, Moonculp was a term that meant no father.
Oh, okay.
Mother, but no father.
All right.
So when the truth about who his mother is that she was a daughter of the king Demetius, and she had been forced to live with the nuns because of her pregnancy, because she got pregnant by the guy she was engaged to or by somebody else, who knows, but her father didn't like that, and she was actually a Cornish duchess.
Oh.
So she got sent off to the nunnery, right? So according to the British Encyclopedia, her name is Adhan, but she's also been called Hunith.
Okay.
And in some of the TV shows that they've had out, you will hear her called Hunith. Eunice, I would think, would be that name. So finally, Merlin is taken off to see Vortigern and gives him prediction that he had already been in the business of giving these predictions. So silly were those others not to understand the nature, is what Merlin says to Vortigern. There is a moat around this hill, and your stones, no matter how deep you go, will keep sinking because of the moat that is under the surface. Dig deeper till you find the water, empty the water, and you will find your stones as well as 2 hollow stones. Those hollow stones are eggs, the eggs of 2 ferocious dragons, a red dragon and a white dragon. So axes, shovels, and men drained the water and found all of the stones and opened the red and the white. And the dragons appeared. And so the first noted kingly prediction, and then Merlin told Vortigern, in a bardly way, of course. So it's very poetic, and I didn't copy all those words. You know, we'll be here till next week if I did that. Anyway, he saw him through. I saw this through the light in my forehead. And I see that your death is near. And this is Merlin telling Vortigern. When this happens, the brothers Aurelius Ambrosius and Uther Pendragon will take the throne. They've invaded Wales with purpose to slay Vortigern, the usurper and the illegal king. So they come in after him, and they do take the throne. The battle ensued, and the walls were even though the walls were impenetrable, and they resorted to fireballs and burnt the place to the ground. Vortigern went with it. Now, during the time of the siege, Vortigern has sex with his daughter in order to continue the line, and she becomes pregnant. So they did this in the Ambrosius and Uther had an older brother whose name was Constantine, and he was made to be a monk and not very smart. So that's why he was sent off. He was the firstborn, but he was sent off because he wasn't very bright. So,
do you know who wrote this? Is this all handed down from oral tradition?
Oh yes, this is Thomas Haywood wrote this book.
But it's coming down from oral myth and tradition.
Well, I don't know. It's a book of history, and it's endorsed by the people of Carmarthen. In 1812, when the story would still be fresh in their minds and continuous, right? And historically, we know that these things did take place with Vortigern. We know he lived. So anyway, their monk brother who was in exile in Albion, which is Wales. So Vortigern isolated himself in the castle while waiting for the fate. Merlin entertained him through all sorts of magic. And when Merlin knew that the time was nigh, he made to leave, hid a note to be found after he left, and all the rest is history. So he goes off to live with Aurelius.
Okay.
Ambrosius is his last name. That's the two names that he's known by, and Uther is known by Pendragon.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how he receives the last name of Ambrosius, because he was connected to Aurelius to begin with, and did his biddings and entertained him and treated him for all maladies and wounds and, you know, all sorts of magic to keep things going. He's a genius of an apothecary, right? He knows what medicines work, what plants work, what animals work.
Yeah.
So he had done many brave acts. Aurelius was capable of all of these acts because of his interactions with Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
And when Vortigern was gone, he ruled Middle Britain with all of Wales and the Cambrias. He fixed all of the ruined places, especially the temples that were dedicated to the divine worship of the female and the male everywhere, all through the land, until he was poisoned and he died. And then Merlin went to work for Uther.
Right.
Now, Uther is battling somebody else. And it is in this battle, and especially if you've read The Mists of Avalon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marion Zimmer Bradley. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and her husband shows up and she doesn't understand, for she has received this news about his having been killed in this battle with Uther. Right.
Yep.
And she doesn't understand. But what she does know is that he has made mad, passionate love to her in a way he has never, ever treated her before. And she looked at him in a totally different light. Well, what had happened prior to that was Cornelius, Aurelius, I can never say his name correctly, so I'm just going to forget about it. But her husband and she, Irenia, were beckoned to come to the castle where Uther becomes enamored with her and flirts with her right in front of him. And he becomes so enraged that they leave and never return. No matter how many times Uther says, "Come, I am the king. You must honor me. You have to come here." He never goes. So this battle ensues where Uther goes in and slays him. Now, Uther also, after enlisting Merlin, has Merlin develop salve and unguents and medicines to make him look like her husband after he knows that he has been slain in battle. And then he also has Merlin give the same drugs to his right-hand man to look just like her husband's right-hand man. And so they sneak in, and Uther, disguised as her husband, has this mad, passionate night with her, and then has his men go find his body and embalm it and bring it back to the castle. And that is also the same night that Irenia becomes pregnant with Arthur. And so this is how it all begins. And they have two children, Anna and Arthur. And in the interim, Irenia dies, and Uther swears off magic because of it. He blames himself, and then he himself becomes poisoned and killed. And Arthur is to take the throne. But mind you, Merlin has taken the infant. I painted this picture back here of my Merlin. This is my Winter King Merlin.
Okay.
And
beautiful. I
he has
love all the light on him. Yeah.
Thank you. It really shows up nice when the sun isn't shining through the canvas.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, really. Yeah, I love the colors. Yeah.
Thank you. So it is such an intertwined story, and we know the legends of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and we know the Sword in the Stone and Morgana Le
Right.
Fay and Nimu, and who's also called Nimue sometimes,
Yes.
and
Yes.
also called Vivain, the Lady
Right.
of the Lake, because
Yeah.
Nimu becomes the Lady of the Lake. So it's just such an intertwined story. And there are so many different tales about another Merlin Cornelius,
Oops.
who is of Wales. I'm sorry, Cornwall.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the one with the 70 crystal windows. And he supposedly lives in 500 years or 100 years later. So
he was
this
in
is where the
suspended.
confusion
Yeah.
begins.
Okay. Okay.
Now, this is where this recipe for 1,000 days, the recipe for the meal for 1,000 days,
Mhm.
Merlin knew this. He could certainly have done this.
Mhm.
Yeshua knew this. Takes me back to Joseph of Arimathea knowing this.
Right.
Where
Right.
are the lost years of Yeshua? On the mountains in Tibet, in Himalayas.
Right.
And they know that
Yep.
to make this medicine of suspended animation for 1,000 days, you must forage on the mountain, eat only nuts, buds, roots, berries, saps, the bark, and pine needles.
Yep.
And you preserve your body and you go into this catatonic state. Which brings us to Merlin having been come back as the next Merlin and come back as the next Merlin and come back as the next Merlin till he comes back as Nostradamus, till he comes back as Saint Germain. Because
Okay.
Saint Germain would never ever eat a meal with his friends. He always ate a meal separately by himself. And this was one of the reasons why I had such a hard time with Saint Germain till I found this recipe.
Yeah.
Then I began to understand what it was his servants prepared for him so that he would go into these catatonic states and just show up 100 years later in another town, you know?
Wow.
How many
Now,
Yeshuas are there? How many
yeah.
Josephs are there?
I mean, there's so much mythology that is based on handed down oral tradition that it's hard to really discern what is exactly the truth and what isn't, but it's fascinating. Annie wants to know, what about Morgana? Morgana is different than
Yeah,
Morgan Le
there's
Fay.
Morgan Le Fay, his sister, who's Merlin's sister.
Right.
And then there's Morgana, who is said to be Arthur's sister.
Oh.
And there's a confusion as to who she belongs to. For me, in reality,
Okay.
Is she someone that, you know, the terms sister and cousin were used interchangeably.
That's very true.
Those terms were used. This is why I look at Joseph of Arimathea and Joseph, the father of Yeshua, because the church wrote him out.
Right.
However, he was a skilled merchant, a wise merchant, a navigator, or a builder, or Joseph of Arimathea was a rich tin merchant who knew how to navigate a ship, who knew how to follow the stars.
Yep. And he's the
was
one,
Merlin
actually,
really?
though, he's the one that had Jesus' blood in the Holy Grail.
That's right.
That's Joseph of Arimathea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the Six of Swords. That's Joseph of Arimathea taking Mary Magdalene and the baby. And who's the guy hiding in the bundle at the bottom of the boat? Yeshua. You know, and having access to all of this and being so well traveled as to go to the mountains where you can find tin and bring it back to the Middle East and sail to Ireland and know Merlin. Was Merlin really Melchior? Was he really one of the wise kings to begin with?
Wow. Okay.
I mean, there's so much tangled story here that has been hidden in the vaults.
Yes, absolutely.
In the Vatican, and I want to go through those books.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand. And of course, Dan Brown brought all this up in his story many years
Yeah,
ago. And the Catholic Church kind of went wacky with it. But he said it's just a story, but I mean, it really had a lot to do with what was going on. So
exactly.
Celtic Seer says that Morgana was the illegitimate daughter of Uther. So
Okay.
all right,
Okay. There you go. That's how they're sisters
okay,
and brother. So, we all know this story, but where I would like to really go is to how does Merlin come into your life? Melchizedek as well. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I've got a whole
yeah.
thing on Melchizedek and following the stars. Oh, Annie, you
It
and I
really
need
is
to.
a fascinating thing to do this,
Mm.
to thread it all together and show, just exactly how it all intersects. And yeah, it's fabulous. Hi, Soul Spa. Yeah.
So Merlin's predictions begin very early in his life as a child and continue on. And how many stories do we know that go along with this line of thinking? And
Right.
we think about Cerduin and Taliesin. He's the one who started all of this. He was the greatest bard of all. And so is Merlin the greatest bard of all. So when I channel him, if I may, can I read
Yes, of course.
an incantation that I have written for Merlin?
Absolutely.
I mean, he is my bard. I've written incantations for all of my guides.
This is your special one. I know.
Yeah. So
he also hides stuff on Diana all the time.
So. Oh, he does. Wait, yeah. Well, some of you have already heard these stories, but Merlin, alchemist, magician, keeper of the book. It is more than with eyes that we learn to look. You left from here, entered to a new plane, then took Nostradamus to be your name, leaving mysteries in many quatrain. One more pause in your refrain. Returning this time is Saint Germain. Merlin, alchemist, magician, and more. Beckoned by you, I stand on the shore. Avalon rises out of the mists, keeper of light and giver of gifts.
I got the goosebumps.
My Merlin. He's here, and I'm about to cry, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah. It's all right. Whew. It can be very
Okay, here's one from Melchizedek, oracle of God knowledge, Raphael, scribe of his college. From numbers to stars you've set in the charts. This is wisdom I must impart. That's Melchizedek, who helps me with my astrology.
Beautiful.
So I could go on because I have a small book here for all of my guys.
No, it's wonderful information. So when I was in my first graduate classes, where you can take classes that are kind of really cool, not just all these basic classes. Yeah. I took a King Arthur class, and I got so fascinated by Merlin and Morgan Le Fay and King Arthur and all of it, just all of it. And also he has a belief in the avatars of the Celtic horned god. How do you say that? Cernunnos? The one with the deer.
Cernunnos.
Cernunnos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cernunnos, like Cernunnos.
Okay. And also they always talk about the stags in these stories, all these stories.
The antlered goddess. Yelena the Trods. She's my girl.
Yeah. Yep. And Merlin, of course, comes to us, and he's a guy, like I have the picture on the front of the show. He has that hat, and he's like the wizard. And I really think that when Harry Potter lady was writing all her books, that's who she was thinking of. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I read somewhere that she was channeling him. There's so many wonderful stories out there, right?
There really are. They are. But he was a wild man. He was a wonder child, because I guess when he was born, he could talk. That's what I read. Yeah. A prophet, a poet, a counselor, a wizard, and just all these things. But I had no idea that he was all these other incarnations. And so that ties everything up nicely for me that I've always wondered. Yeah.
See, you know, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I found in all these different publications, well, you know, he came back as, he was first Joseph of Arimathea and then came back as Merlin. No, he was Merlin first and then came back as Joseph of Arimathea. No, he was Melchior and knew Joseph of Arimathea. They were buds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
if Yeshua dies or is proposed to be dead, who would become Mary Magdalene's uncle, keeper of her, because they consider the times, but the
Right.
father of Yeshua, who
Mm-hmm.
could very possibly have been Joseph of Arimathea, because they're not telling us the truth and they're not letting it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
when I was doing this way back 6 months ago, he came to me, of course, because he always does.
Yeah.
And he said to me, we're different than in old age, be it magic or breath, for aren't they the same? Founding in each, he creates. I
Mm-hmm.
am the new age, I am the old age, I am every age. And he gave me this symbol. It's an I with an HE written on either side.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at that, and this is where he said it's an I, not a T. I shall be the new age. He. The symbol omnipotent is he. Omnipotent is I. Omnipotent is we.
Okay.
This is what you should say is I am, not a me. Make no mistake. Do not confuse me with Aurelius Ambrosius. We were of a brotherhood, adopted by each other. I being family lost, he bestowed me his surname, and I share in it in his life, shortened by poison, as was Uther's years later. Arthur and Anna Morgana were and are brother and sister. Magic is a discipline, beaten out of many by religion and politics, while in such while the in such take to its practice with their own cults.
Right.
Paleolithic and Neolithic man were not the savages that the Victorian age archaeologists were so fond of depicting. They were engaged in their own survival with their animal neighbors. Now, the story of how he got those rocks to stand in Canterbury,
Yeah. Yeah.
not Canterbury, but you know, I'm so excited, and I have such chills. But
In Cornwall.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, where is Stonehenge? Because
Not sure. Yeah.
he brought Stonehenge in the power of the triangle. I mean, there's so much here, hon. The mystic is content.
Oh, I know. It isn't something we can exhaust in one small talk. Yeah.
Oh.
But it is interesting because Annie says you're activating a lot of Akashic frequencies. Thank you. So
Thank you.
I think all of us have some knowledge of it. And,
yes.
And, you know, Uther was King Arthur's father and Morgan Le Fay's brother. Just so you know who Uther was, just so everybody is, Avebury, is that what you said? Okay, that's where it is, Valerie. Thank you, honey. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's where it is. And so, you know, the mystic is content to let it all happen. The magician acts to achieve a certain outcome. That's what he said.
Yep, absolutely.
So surrender to the divine will, and then the gift of magic, a gift on loan from the higher powers. And I could go on and on and on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, even though it's a story, if you haven't read The Myths of Avalon, and I think there's actually one now before it that was a prequel, I believe.
Well, there's another series also. It's called The Maeve Chronicles.
Okay. And is that who was it? Somebody read somebody mentioned another author that they read all their books, and that
Bright
was
Madonna.
No. oh gosh, I can't remember. And I know I've seen the name. Mary Stewart, Wiki says. Yeah, Mary Stewart got her interested. Yes. But honestly, we had to read that book for a class along with Tennyson, Mallory, some other works. And I was telling Diana that Mallory wrote The Death of Arthur, or called La Mort d'Arthur, which I'm not pronouncing it right, but it's means the death of Arthur. And he was in jail at the time because he was in trouble for talking about all this stuff. So he would have people come visit him, and he'd sneak out manuscripts so that they could go and print them up or write them up. And he forgot all the people that he had killed off. And so he then continues to write and brings it. And people are like, you're reading about this. They go out on a hunting expedition and they die. And then next thing you know, they're hunting somewhere with somebody else. And of course, that's what makes it so magical. Even though he didn't do it on purpose, in a way, it sort of showed up that way, didn't it?
So right. It did.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So the author of the Maeve Chronicles is Elizabeth Cunningham.
Okay.
And it's Magdalene Rising, the beginning, the Maeve Chronicles, the Passion of Mary Magdalene, and then the Bright Dark Madonna.
Okay.
So those are the 3 books. And I guess now that there's more after that, but the first 3 were enough.
I mean, I think when we were younger that, they were talking about the Knights of the Round Table and all of the horses and the swords and this and fighting. And some of us ladies probably thought, oh my God, but it really has so much beautiful stuff. And yes, Thomas Mallory, Malory, he wrote it. And it's worth reading. Yeah, as long as you're open-minded with it, because it's old. I mean, it's an old story.
Oh yeah, and it's hard language to read sometimes too, like what is in that book that I showed y'all.
Oh yeah, was it in Old English? Is that what it's written in Old English?
It's 1812, so it's not such these and thous are not in there.
Okay,
but it's easier on that, but there's still, the grammar is just, and it's British. 1812 British,
I get it. Yeah.
And so the Life of Merlin, surnamed Ambrosius, for a really good synopsis of the history of both him, because after you get through the very beginning of the book, these are all the things behind it. 200 pages of predictions of Merlin. Written in Bardic. So it's all prose. I mean, it's all poetry. So it's very hard.
Yeah, that's what they consider a bard. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And then this one, The Mysteries of Merlin, is a decent book. And this is actually the first book that introduced me the recipe, the Buddhist recipe.
Right. Isn't that also the Jewish symbol for
the Kabbalah?
The Kabbalah, yeah. Okay. See how everything's intertwined? It's just amazing, and we don't think about it that way. Yeah,
that's right, because the Kabbalah is the Old Testament. There's 11 roads, but there's actually 22. And in the numerology of our times, I'm an 11. But when I do the numerology from the Kabbalah, I'm a 22. So it is basically,
both of them are master numbers.
Exactly. And so, it's still, and something else that I find truly amazing is, for me personally, and there is a connection, I'm getting the chills again, that is extremely important to me, because my angelic numbers are, I call them my team of 47. Because any combination in 3 or 4 of the 2 digits, 4 and 7, are my angel numbers.
Oh, okay, I get it.
And you know what keeps showing up in these Merlin tale of when he was born? 447, 744, 474. Just and so there's, I'm called to it for a reason, and I would put it to what Carolyn Booker had said when we were doing the ghost thing, which is me and the druid.
Yeah, Druid tradition. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's all interlinked as well. I mean, I ended up doing a paper in that class on Druidism because, you know, I talked about the wicker cages and all the other things.
Right.
And
And
it
it's
just, it
slaughter.
was so much to know, so much to
Right.
know. Yes.
So,
Yes.
so today is the day of all considered All Souls. If you still practice Catholicism, it would be All Souls Day. And
Uh-huh.
tomorrow is the day of the innocents, those who
Okay.
were innocently uh, accused and were innocent but slaughtered, as in the infants in Herod and what he did, and as anybody, our sisters in witchery who were doused with rocks on their lap and oh, you died. Sorry.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, now we're
Absolutely.
going to hang you because you're a witch. You saved
Yeah.
yourself from the water.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. So let's move a little bit into Samhain
okay.
because, of course, this would have been the tradition of the Celtics. This is the witch tradition, and I would say, would you call Merlin a warlock? Would you call him that, or a wizard?
I would call, well, what's the difference? Tell me the difference.
I don't know that there is one. I
I
guess I'd see him more as a wizard. The wording, yeah.
Because warlock gets a bad reputation. Doesn't necessarily really have one though. But when
Yes,
you say warlock, he's associated with the evil side
with negative
and the
stuff.
dark side.
That's true.
But can you have magic without a little dark in there? Your candle burns brighter if the lights are out.
Yeah, that's very, very true. That's very true. So, Samhain, as you explained, was 3 days leading up. So the 29th, 30, 31st.
Yes.
And then Monday, well, it's different every year because of different things. But
Right.
this year it was, it took place yesterday, but you say it takes place until the 11/11
Portal.
gateway.
Yes. I mean, and if we think about how the energies are rising for all of us, how we are ascending, is it even getting thin anymore? Are the gates closing at all? When so many of us are channelers, when so many of us are remote viewing, when when I can hear the drums on this land, when I go walk in a cornfield that's been plowed since God knows how long, the early 1800s, and I find an ancient arrowhead. Now, this is my first summer here, right? And the crops have not been planted yet. It's early spring, so it's still kind of frosty, and the just churned up from last year's harvest. And I'm walking the dogs back there, and I look on the ground, and there's an arrowhead, one that was designed to pierce bird because it's very small.
Okay.
And it's granite, and it's honed. And one of I don't know what that part is called of the triangle, but one of the things at the end of the triangle is broken off. And there it was, just for me,
waiting for you to find it.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my God, what a treasure. So, that's now a sacred tool.
Sure. Yeah.
And
beautiful. Wow.
Sits with my chief.
That's wonderful. So it's very interesting. I pulled a card when we were talking because I just felt like I needed to do that. And I got Greet the Darkness.
Oh, good.
Yeah, look at
how special.
How special is that? And it says, here where the spine bends and the mouth quivers, breathe the hidden, the pieces that made you whole, but cut deep with all of their sharp edges. So, yeah, it reminds me so much of that Japanese saying that those aren't wounds, that's where the light gets in. Doesn't that remind you of that? It does to me. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. What does mine say? All Hallows Eve. No Halloween at my house. If you saw my pictures, they're up on Facebook. Call upon the voices that stir your senses through the night. Cast an unforgiven howl as you stomp your might through the ground.
There you
And
go.
I'm still doing that.
Yeah, yeah. But it reminds us that we need to also embrace our shadow side and you figure out what it is about it that makes it shadow, that makes it, and again, that's the magic that Merlin can give us.
Oh, right.
Yes, absolutely. I
At the
love
bottom
it.
of my deck is apples,
Oh, all
the
right.
Isle of Avalon,
Uh-huh.
us in the apple orchard.
Oh, yeah.
Boles is the Tower of St. Michael's.
Uh-huh.
To
Yeah.
taste, one must swallow. You must swallow it whole, and beneath the satin flame hides the drowning waters. Drowning
Mm.
waters, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Avalon. That's Avalon because the Lady of the Lake.
Right. Right. So the Lady of the Lake is the one that was his undoing. Isn't that correct? She's the one
Arthur,
that did she bury him for that 100 years? Is that why that happened, or is that something
you
different?
mean Merlin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, because in Nimue, he's also said to be her father,
Oh,
and he finds her
okay.
before she is the Lady of the Lake.
Okay. Okay. That's right. I mean, it's been
But
so long since I read it. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and Excalibur already exists,
Right.
and
Right.
she has possession of it
Right.
because Merlin no longer wanted it because it created such an evil urge inside of him that he threw
Right.
it,
Yeah.
and she found it.
Yeah. And
Now,
Excalibur is actually, if you all watched the show when you were a kid, is the sword and the stone. Isn't that correct? And the
yes,
only person, and when Arthur pulled it, it was whoever can pull that sword out of the stone that is the king, I believe.
right.
Yeah.
And that is what Uther is said. Not Uther, but Merlin is said to have done with it when he absconds with the baby Arthur and hides him with this couple that live in a cave, that live in an isolated area. So he is able to grow up and doesn't make an appearance until he's older
Mm-hmm.
and comes back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
Wasn't
that's
she sort of an apparition, though? Because Randy said, "How did she get in the lake?" I thought she was an apparition, sort of.
well, as
I,
Vivain, right? As
it's a
Vivain,
vein. Right. Right. Yeah. So
but
she
when we
was like
talk
3
about
different people names. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Okay.
she's called 3 different names, and I would, if we ascribe that to just tribal life, in tribal life you get several names during your lifetime.
Right.
They change as you do good deeds or as you mature, as you change, as things change in your life. So as Nimue, she's this youth.
Right.
And
Oh,
then,
so this is Maiden Mother Crone.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
all right.
exactly.
Okay. So what is, Annie wants to know, what is a Sid? Is it Sidhe?
She,
Sidhe?
the Banshee.
Oh, the Banshee. That was on the bottom of my deck. Was the Banshee. Oh my goodness. Wow. She got red eye. Oh,
They are not as evil as they are said to
okay.
be. They are
Okay.
not. You put
Yeah.
evil connotations on everything. The
Mhm.
incubus. An incubus is what? An angel? An
Right.
angel of the dark? What's an angel of the dark?
Right. Yeah.
So the legends that go along with the Shay,
Yeah.
they're also found with the imps and the pixies and even the fairy, but the fae folk are considered to be the higher of the realms, and then you get down there to the pixies, and then you get down there to the imps, and the pixies and the brownies, they're always playing the prank, right?
And that's where the Girl Scouts came from.
Exactly.
The brownies, right? Yeah.
Exactly, the brownies. And
she
then
said it that Annie says that name is not the Banshee. The one.
okay.
Sidhe, S-I-D.
It's just pronounced Shay. She.
Shay. Okay.
It's the she.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's more of a fairy. Is that what it is, Annie? Celtic Seer says the Banshee's the angel of death and brings you to the other side. And it would be like our the guy with the
The
sight,
Reaper.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper. Yeah. Oh, it's pronounced she.
She.
Yeah.
Chi. Do you say chi, Annie?
Mm-hmm.
Speak up, dear.
Speak up,
I
Annie.
can't hear you. I say she, just like she went to the store. Ancient, closely related to angels. The she.
Okay.
The she.
Yeah.
As the Selkie, it's so hard to differentiate because you have to know the ancient legend that goes with it and how did they come to be.
Right. Right. Yep. And
And the fairy
really,
folk,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, the fairy folk, they play pranks too.
Uh-huh.
There's an
Yeah.
upside, a positive side, and a downside to that as well.
Yeah.
And so when Merlin gets mad at me, he gets testy. He doesn't want to talk, that's fine. But if I'm in a silent mode and don't hear him saying, hey, I want to talk to you, he starts hiding my stuff. And he sends the pixies and the imps and the brownies and even the she to do that.
Okay.
Things get hidden right under my nose, as with my palm stone.
Uh-huh.
If I looked once, I looked 1,000 times under the cushions in this chair
You did.
for my palm stone for more than 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I sat down for the dream show, and I went to fluff the pillow, and there it was. And earlier that day, I had just been doing a lot of work outside that day in my fairy garden, the new one that has been built. And I had a cat ball sitting on this dry sink, and all of a sudden it went off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's never gone off, really. This room, it never goes off.
Uh-huh.
It went off crazy. And I didn't think anything of it till later when we were doing the show and I picked up the pillows. So that's when he had one of the pixies stick it back there.
Yeah. Trickster sprites. I love that. That's perfect. So, Sherry, you bring something up that I wanted to mention because I teach mythology in literature. And of course, mythology, when somebody says that's a myth, we think that means it's a lie. But it's not a lie. A myth is a story that is made up to explain something that we really don't understand, especially if we lived earlier in the world. And yes, there are tons and tons of myths about how the world started. I mean, the Chinese, if you look them all up, they're very, very similar. And it's like trying to explain something you don't have words for. When we do some traveling to different planets, there are things we see that there are no words for that we can explain,
Right.
So we would have to say that would be a myth in a way.
Right.
But it is, the legends very much follow the same sort of thing. They just have a little bit of different. Yeah.
And how language plays a part.
Yes. That's true.
One of the things that I'm always struck by is the fact that the Hopi refer to the ant people in their language as the Anunnaki.
Yep, Anunnaki. Yeah.
But in Mesopotamia, it's the Anunnaki of the sky and not of the underground.
Wow.
In Tibet, the word for sun is the same word for moon somewhere in South America. Now I can't remember exactly where it is. Different extremes, but the same word.
Correct.
Has a different meaning, but both ensue light.
That's right.
Both the ant people and the sky people ensue beings of another realm.
Yeah.
Anunnaki.
Anunnaki.
And Anunnaki.
Yep, that's very true. So yes, they did make myths to protect the truth as well. And that's why when Diana was saying there were many Merlins, they didn't say he was reincarnated, but that's very, very much what we're seeing. But I think it's wonderful, Christine, you saw your first fairy. I think that's wonderful. I'm so excited for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Morgaine was King Arthur's sister, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
And
King
there's so
Arthur's
many
sister.
different dialects that go on
True.
and different spellings for the same thing because nothing was universal or set in stone. And, you just guessed at what it sounded like as you sounded it out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's why we have that backwards E that shows up. What the hell's that all about?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you mean
Absolutely.
by that?
Well, I'm really happy that this has been such a hit, actually, because sometimes this stuff can be a little bit dry. I mean, but I think that we are fascinated by these old stories and these prototypes. I guess I want to say, and the fact that they were probably what really brings me a lot of relief in a way is that the story of Gilgamesh, which was 25,000 years ago, they found information.
And
Yeah,
he's real.
he's
He's
real. He was the king. He was the king. And it was all written down on stone tablets. And we're reading about this man that lived, and he just lived a regular life, but he, and so when I see that, and then I see this, like, we're talking about Merlin or we're talking about other entities like this, you have to know there had to have been somebody. They didn't make things up at that time. They really didn't.
No,
Yeah.
they didn't. They were trying to preserve what little they had,
Uh-huh.
and and this is going on in this tribe, and this is going on in this tribe, and the whole world
Right.
is tribal. It's not the tribes of Africa, the tribes of the Americas, the tribes of England. No, the whole world is a tribe.
The whole world is a tribe. Yes. Yes, that's wonderful. Well, if you're that interested, we will come back and do some other. We could talk about Joseph of Arimathea a little bit more. We could talk about Yeshua, but whatever. But I think that I love that this spurred your interest. And I know that Annie would love you to talk about the Fae, the fairy folk.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so much fun. People, how's tomorrow, Annie? No, Annie, you're on a show with me tomorrow, so you have to wait.
I'll be in your audience telling you.
I know. It's great. It's great. But
so at the bottom of my deck, I have nature spirits. And look, there she is with her in her hair.
With Serranos, yep, absolutely.
Yep. On your toes, twirl and twirl until you're ready to take flight. They arrive in the winds beneath your wings and speak through the swaying of the trees. And Elen of the Trods, oh my gosh, I would love to talk about her. And Bride, Bridget, keeper of the light. I keep 2 candles burning and lanterns on my porch almost all year long. During the summer, it's hard because the sun is so hot, it melts the candles.
Right. Yeah.
And it gets unreasonably expensive, even though the big ones from the dollar store. So
yeah, I get it. So I pulled the dark moon. In the dark of your heart lives new breath waiting for you to release its ghost. So there you go.
Perfect.
We all need to know these things. We at least need to be aware of these things. And so there's the release of the ghost. It's something that's,
Right. Yeah. We have a new moon coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
It's
and there's so much that's hidden, not uncovered, or that we don't have time to talk about, I guess, or think about. And there's so many cool, the connections that you made here were just so fabulous.
Thank you.
Really speak to how these traditions and how these people all interacted with each other. And I think it created a real aha moment for a lot of us. So,
and thank you, Annie, for recognizing it as the Akashic, because I really believe that what I have pulled together, I don't know, somebody keeps tugging on my ears. Tell them what you think. Tell them what you think. So, I mean.
Yeah. Is so the Saint of Ireland, Saint Bridget feast day, isn't that also IMBOLC? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Imbolc.
Okay. So that's another pagan holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because long before she was Saint Bridget,
Mm-hmm.
she was Bridget the Smithy.
Okay.
She was Bridget the Virgin. She was Bridget the Keeper of the Well. She was Bridget the Light. And that's what the light is about, is being the smithy.
Yeah.
Being
Good.
your own smithy. Create
Being
for
your
yourself.
own smithy. Yeah.
It is your strength.
It is. Wow. Well, thanks everybody. And thank you for being here with us today and also giving us your say and your questions and your feelings about this. And we both used the Season of the Witch, Samhain Oracle. That's what we were using. And they're fun. They're a lot of fun to use for each time. So,
and there's 4 of them, one for each of the fire holidays in the Celts.
Yep, and they're making more. They're going to make them for 8 of them. She's just working
the crossfires.
Yes, absolutely.
Crossfire hurricane. Here we go.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Diana, as always, my dear. Just a wealth of information and beautifully explained. So, yeah. Thanks, Celtic Seer. I'm so glad you were here because I thought of you when she was going to do this, and so yes, Diana taught me about Samhain, how to say that one. I mean, I could say Yule.
Maban.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Ma. Bun. Yeah. Thanks so much. Hi, Jenny. I'm glad you got back from your business trip okay. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. All right. Oh, that's cute, Michelle. There was a reason she didn't pay attention to the bull she learned in history.
Yeah, I got a much better version.
I know, I did too. Oh, all right. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Diana. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.